King Leopold II was born in Brussels, Belgium on April 9, 1835 and died on December 17, 1909. He reigned for exactly 44 years from December 17, 1865 to December 17, 1909. Leopold II was the second child of the then currently reigning monarch, Leopold I, and his second wife, Louise, daughter of King Louis Philip of France. Unfortunately, his mother died in 1850 when he was only 15 years old. 3 years later, Leopold married Mary Henriette of Austria on August 22nd. She was an accomplished artist, musician, and horseback rider. Her benevolence and character earned her the nickname the Rose of Brabant. 3 daughters and 1 son was born of this marriage. His son, also named Leopold, died of pneumonia at age 9 after falling into a pond. His death caused great sorrow for him as he had lost his only heir, and this incident destroyed their marriage. They essentially lived separate lives, and they split completely after a final attempt to have a son, which ended with the birth of their last child, Clementine. They did not divorce, but Mary left a spa in 1895 and died there in 1902. However, Leopold was barely phased and had many mistresses, and at age 65, he took as a mistress Caroline Lacroix, a 16-year-old French prostitute, and they remained together until his death. She was very unpopular within the Belgian population due to their illegitimate relationship, and Leopold showering her with expensive gifts. They married secretly 5 days before his death, but because it was not a civil ceremony, it was rendered invalid under Belgian law. After his death, it was revealed that she had 2 illegitimate sons who were most likely Leopold's. They would have had a strong claim to the throne if the marriage had been valid. Leopold had many accomplishments in his life, as his reign was marked by a number of major political developments. The Liberals governed Belgium from 1857 to 1880, and during their final year in power, legislated the Frere-Orban Law of 1879. This law created free, secular, and compulsory primary schools supported by the state, and withdrew all state support from Roman Catholic primary schools. Many other changes took place under Leopold's reign, like the first revision of the Belgian Constitution. Universal male suffrage was introduced, the eligibility requirements for the Senate were reduced, and elections would be based on a system of proportional representation, which continues to this day. However, Leopold's achievements aren't very well known. In fact, what he is chiefly remembered for is for committing one of the world's most disgusting acts of genocide, also known as the Congo Free State. Leopold deeply believed that overseas colonies were the key to a country's greatness, and he worked tirelessly to acquire colonial territory for Belgium, which he did in May 18, 1885. He was able to obtain the Congo region by convincing the European community that he was involved in philanthropic and humanitarian work. In actuality, he was extracting ivory, rubber, and minerals in the upper Congo basin for sale on the world market. It was also more of Leopold's personal possession than a colony. Ironically, his nominal purpose in the region was to uplift the local people and develop the area. This, however, was far from the actual horrors that were transpiring there. A violent military force called the Force Publique placed unrealistic quotas for materials upon villages, and if these quotas were not met, the consequences were dire. To make up for the quotas, villagers would often have their hands and feet cut off or would be killed, and soldiers would make young men kill or rape their mothers or sisters. Villagers would also often be starved, and diseases ran rampant during this hellish period. This also caused small wars to occasionally erupt, as villages would attack other villages to steal materials in order to meet these quotas. Word of these atrocities did not reach public ears until Edmond D. Morel, a humanitarian journalist, founded the Congo Reform Association, and reformers exposed the events. Writer Arthur Conan Doyle, who is also the author of the Sherlock Holmes series, was also active in exposing the events by writing a widely read book called The Crime of the Congo. Because of these reformers and journalists, the Congo Free State quickly became one of the biggest international scandals and raised outcry from around the world, as deaths were numbered up from 10 to 15 million due to a lack of accurate records being kept. Most of these deaths are attributed to human rights abuses and forced labor systems. By 1908, public pressure and diplomatic maneuvers led to the end of Leopold II's rule and to the annexation of the Congo as a colony of Belgium, thenceforth known as the Belgium Congo. Today, we learn about Leopold II for his atrocities committed against mankind and his blatant violations of human rights laws. However, up until this point, have you ever even heard of him? Because I hadn't until I was assigned this man. And you want to know why he isn't talked about? You see, when you kill 10 million Africans, you aren't called Hitler. He's part of a long history of colonialism, imperialism, slavery, and genocide in Africa that would clash with the social construction of the barely hidden white supremacist agenda in our schools. It doesn't fit neatly into school curriculums in our capitalist society. Europe and America tend not to think of minorities as people, but as filthy animals. Because of this, his name doesn't come to symbolize the living incarnation of evil. His name and picture don't produce fear, hatred, and sorrow. The white guy who turned the Congo into his personal little playground and killed 10 to 15 million innocent Congolese doesn't make the cut. Your victims are forgotten, aren't talked about, and your name isn't remembered. To this day, the Congo is still a dangerously unstable region with many that are uneducated and in poverty, and it's all thanks to one man's influence and greed. That is why today, he needs to be remembered as the callous, sociopathic human he truly was. Because if we don't, something like this will inevitably happen again, and it will be our faults. People in the future will look back on us with hatred and disbelief because we made the horrible mistake of allowing history to repeat itself.